I'll get the list. How are you, sir? Dennis Ryan, good to see you. Hi, John. Dennis Ryan.
Dick here, Dennis Ryan.
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
So let me get you.
Yeah.
They're
Well, tonight they're only over there.
oh, like hell.
Yeah, we didn't have the dates. I know you walked through it, but we set the dates.
Graduated with Calvert. I'm not going to get more.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we had sophomore in there, right? Yeah. Yeah. So he came back the next week, got students. He'll be okay.
Evidently somebody was all on it.
Right. The kid did his best.
Covered all the stuff.
I'll be right back, Steve.
You know what I did? I went home, and I just happened to mention to my wife that we were selling these.
Really? How are you? Great to see you. Oh my God, that's terrific. Like that. Oh, all right.
It's all right, no problem.
Unless that's for the...
Yes, they did pretty well this year. That's true.
One camera.
Yes. But yeah, I think the satellite St. Joe's still has theirs in this for like powerful rivals. West is going through an evolution.
Radio shows going right outside, or then I can watch one.
Yes.
And I'm not
Professional athletic.
Yeah, they were kind of like stunned. It's the most memorable thing athletically I can ever remember in my career.
Wow, okay. Then leaving stuff at Penn State and all that?
Nothing.
Wow. Okay, I understand there's...
You get put in a situation that if you don't do it, you don't do it, you don't show up, you don't play, and then you get all this shit.
It's my last game.
I'm just following more so just
Hey. 75 years.
So I'll let you keep looking for Joe then.
101 wins for this fellow, the coach of the Hall's varsity team. And Coach Maselli, welcome to you. Welcome to the show. Well, Vince Banquet is happy to talk to you, although he's a loyal guy, you know, and Stan White is here as well. Let me ask you, Vince, Alden Maselli coached in some pretty good games from all that and reading up on it here. He won 9 of the 14 that he coached, and there were some pretty decent ball games.
That's right, and I think that probably coaching his son might have been one of the things that was running off.
Oh, it's great. It's super. Something you could, not imagine what it's like to be done. And, we had it for 5 times, but, I would love to be able to do it for the kids. It's a great show.
Those are 14 parts of the game he coached and won 9. Is there one that stands out particularly?
Well, I think that the one that has to stand out is the one where Doyle was 9-0, and he won the MFA championship. We were struggling with a 7-2 seed, and we went down to the final minute 32 seconds where they scored with minute 32, and to go ahead and they missed the extra point. The score was 14-8 at the half, and it was minute 32, and we ran a reverse. Took it down to 3 punches in, kicked the extra point, won the game 15-14 to give them their only loss of the year. That had to be one of the biggest games for us.
And there was a kid named Garrett McPherson.
Garrett McPherson took the handoff in the reverse, yes.
And he went to Boston College.
Boston College. He was followed there by Mike Sanders and Kevin Locke. All 3 of those young men played for Boston College.
Now I guess the baton has been passed, so to speak. Lou Eckrell is the new kid on the block. We're going to be talking to him, hopefully. Is he right there, Coach? If you would, actually pass the phone, because as much as we did want to touch base with you, we want to get the guy that's actually going to be on the sideline to talk to us as well. So, look, that would be great. Pleasure talking to you, Coach. Okay, yeah, Lou Eckrell will be joining us here, I am told. And, Coach, are you with us?
Yeah. I'll walk you through.
Oh, walking somewhere. Oh, you're passing. In the process of passing, live radio at its finest, folks. This is the passing of the phone. I guess, literal passing of the baton. One close to that. So, you couldn't do it any better. Coach Eckrell, how are you? You are on with Vince Bagley and Stan White and Josh Lewin, and I'm Josh, and happy to talk to you. You're the new kid on the block here, so to speak, and so am I, actually. You've attended a lot of these Turkey Bowl games, but you've never actually been the head coach. You've got the added pressure of trying to break a 5-game losing streak, too. How do you see it coming down?
It's going to be a tough game, that's for sure. We're doing our best to prepare. We'll get a little bit later, I'm sure.
Lou, your father played back in 1943 and 4 on back-to-back Loyola champions. Have you discussed that era of football in this series much with him over the years?
Many times. He's going to be here at dinner tonight. And, he always talks about Knoxacre and Goodrow and, some of those really good Loyola teams. They were undefeated at that time under Ed Barton. And he's very proud of it, and I'm proud of him, too.
Now, you played at Gibbs,
Yes.
and then you played against Calvert Hall.
Yes. Several times.
What was that like? What was the Gibbons program like when you were playing there?
It was a fairly new program. Of course, it was under one of the
really got going on about passing was the Calvert Hall graduate. And then after that, Dick Phoenix took over, another Calvert Hall graduate, and I played for Dick Phoenix. And we were fairly successful. The 2 years that I played for, I think my junior year, I'm pretty sure it was a tie at Mount St. Joe. And then my senior year, we upset Calvert Hall.
Lou Eckrell, our guest, he is going to be coaching for Calvert Hall on Thursday, Thanksgiving, and of course the Friday night tonight, that is the banquet to kind of set everything up and to let the kids know that this is a big deal on the Diamond Anniversary, and they're honoring some coaches of the past for both schools as well. Coach, good luck to you. We're going to have you pass the phone to the Loyola fellas if you would. Don't spit on you or anything. Don't do anything like that. But
we had a great coach here, Tracy Mayer. I'm sure he wants to come on next and talk a little bit about his year and the great tradition of Loyola has.
Great. And while you're setting that up, let me very, very quickly get you the I Pick 'em, You Pick 'em picks for this week. Those of you that want to factor in, get the chance to win that dinner for two at the Calvert Restaurant in Washington.
Just as I have a real estate company. That's great. I haven't seen him.
Talking about your dad many times.
Hey, Don Augie.
How
you doing, Jim? Nice to see you.
Good. I'm Kit. I'm the
Oh, you're
youngest
Kit.
one. Jim will be here later.
Okay, well, you got that thing up to your face. I can't tell.
Good.
I should have seen
I just
it.
heard your interview there.
How old are they, man? That's great.
The teacher's hand brings her.
What's happening, buddy? What's new? You looking good, man. Jeez. What happened?
You'll have to get through these guys.
Hi, Joe.
I know that guy well, because I mean, it's a great show.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Freddie, how are you? Good to see you.
How's the wife?
I will help you.
Make sure the brakes come on. I cut them off when I have
Hey, Randy. Come by. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, I can walk.
Call that number. Call that number.
Oh yeah, I got my oldest already.
Hey, Lou. Say hi to the cam. Say hi to everybody.
Yes, it is.
I've been retired for about 5 years. We did.
Okay, everybody smile, cheese.
Okay, now don't. I got Would you all mind? If you're insulted, I know you are. Would you mind doing this? Yours now there, we want Oh, this is how you doing, dear?
Are we done with this phone? We just hang.
We say goodbye to them. I got one. Great.
Okay, now, yeah, so that, that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay. Cheese.
Excuse me, sir. Wonderful. Thanks. We'll get some more downstairs. Do it yourselves. Okay.
Okay, oh, that's terrific. Thank you, Tim. Good.
Let Dave get a couple shots. I'm going to get my picture taken with this duo also. All right?
You said that you never met her.
Well, I did. Okay, finally had to be honest.
Looks like you came out one of those NFL games.
Throwback jersey.
Excuse me, Dennis, why don't you stand right here and I'll my shot too? Oh, what? Okay.
66.
Pull this thing around there.
That's right, 50 years. God rest his soul, I was thinking of Chris. Driving over
Okay,
Okay, ready, gentlemen? Moving real tight for me.
All right.
Great. You look happy. That's good. Look right at me. Look right into the camera. Look right here.
The picture is going to melt the camera.
Go over a little bit.
Oil it too. And I'll be proud of it. I really will be proud of it. No, it ain't gonna help. That won't help much, Coach. Nothing we say is going to help much, Coach.
okay, right here, please, first. Okay, everybody smile. Thank you.
Okay, one for me, please. Right here. Okay, very good.
Yeah, just to chip one of those other two coaches.
Hey, I gotta go get a drink. What the hell?
Joe, get you one more shot.
Only take 1 second. Hey, gentlemen.
Right here, please, first. Right here on your right. Thank you. Hold on.
One for me, please. Sir, thank you. Perfect.
Now, Coach.
Sure. You get on this side, I'll get on this side.
Well, I mean, no, just the two of you. Two of us together. Oh, the two of us together. That's the two of you, yeah. Of course. I get a real tight shot.
Okay, Dave, get one of these too.
Okay.
Don't break your camera.
There were certain people George would talk to. You know, he had a selected group. Get you, Bill.
worst snap of the game when I snapped a little bit high to Phil, but to Phil rather, but the other Phil made it all worthwhile. It was the greatest game ever played in the Calvert Hall history.
Which game was this?
69 game.
The 69 game?
42-year-old field goal. Was it
42-year-old field goal? No, not your age. How many yards was the kick?
42, Phil? 42.
Okay, now tell us what role you had in there, Phil. The first Phil.
I held the kick, and I'm just finding out now that I was the unsung hero. I didn't even know it was a high snap, to be honest with you. But now looking at the films, I'm finding out that I had a big part to play in that. So now I'm just glad to be a part of it. And,
thanks for catching that snap.
Great memories, and the greatest moment in Calvert Hall history, football's history. Phil, go ahead. You're the main,
okay, Phil, what's your claim to fame?
You're the main man.
I don't know. I seem to remember kicking a field goal, but I really don't remember it very well, to tell you the truth. I think I was, Carlos, I was talking to Carlos a little while ago. He said, this boy must have had ice water in his veins. I think it was just too stupid to know the difference, to tell you the truth.
Well, I think it was so far that you really weren't thinking about it.
I don't remember being
nothing to lose by.
I really don't remember being that.
It was great.
Oh, it was a high snap.
It was a high snap.
It was a very high snap.
It's on the film.
Thank God he made it.
Tell us about it.
If we wouldn't have had the best spotter around.
That's a man.
Gordy Bank was on the end there, getting a big rush on that side.
When I made that block, it stopped the main man from rushing. He was the fastest guy that ever lived. And Carlos's reaction, Loyola shouldn't be surprised. He's been practicing this for 3 years.
Right, like they've been scouting your scouting your.
That's great. That's great. That's all you did though. Big memorable moment. No doubt about it.
And we couldn't have done it without Loyola. We want to give special thanks to Loyola for being there that day and letting us kick the field goal. They were great. We really appreciate it.
We have to thank them for not punting on 4th and 19.
Right. They ran Joe Broom's ball.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Great kick, Phil. Great kick.
And that's early in the evening.
Fair play.
Huh?
Turnabout's fair play.
My name's Tom Williams. Graduated in '76. Best moment for me was in the Calvert Hall Loyola game when I ran an 83-yard touchdown. And I thought I was at the 5-yard line when I held the ball up, but I was actually at the 20.
I remember that. You got in trouble, too.
I got in trouble when I came to too. And when I came off the field, everybody said, I thought you were going to drop the ball. But that was great for me, because when I was a freshman, I thought, once I get into the final game, Loyola game, I said, if I ever make a long touchdown run, I'm going to hold the ball up. But it's a little too long.
And what was that score?
56-14. 56-14.
83-yard TD run. That's great.
Yeah, it was great.
And then who do we have here?
I'm Augie Maselli Sr., and I'm a former coach at Calvert Hall. And you asked me about the most memorable events. I've had a lot of them, quite a few. And that 75 game, 56-14, was the first time I ever beat Loyola, and that certainly was very memorable. And of course, the year that they were undefeated, and we beat them 15-14 with a minute 32 left on the clock. We ran a reverse on a kickoff. They scored, we ran a reverse, and took it down a tree and punched it in. They were all big wins. Well, every win's a big win, right?
That's right. And I understand you're especially thrilled because at one point you coached your son, your youngest boy.
Augie Jr. Okay, and the only son.
I'm class 82, and I guess the best moments for me was just growing up around Calvert Hall football, being a water boy and a pain in the butt to guys like Tommy, just the whole growing up process, and then finally my senior year, being one of the team leaders and being able to play in the stadium and beat Loyola. We never lost to them. It was a great feeling.
That's great. Did you enjoy playing with your dad? Tell us the truth.
Oh, it was great. It wasn't bad. I played, you know, with the freshman team and JV, and then sort of went through the ranks, so I didn't really have any problems with the guys. You know, I put my time in, and my senior year I was a starter, so it was a great time. Great 4 years. Great lifetime.
Let me add something to that. When Augie was a junior, or even when he was a senior, you earned your position by challenge drills. So he was, he got his starting position by challenging people ahead of him, and that was more or less a device that, you know, got me out of this, helped me out. Okay.
What one single message would you tell all the players that ever played for you, Coach?
Well, I think we had a lot of school pride. We respected our opponents, and we never accepted mediocrity. And I think that from seeing these guys here tonight, that they're going through life the same way.
Thank you very much. Couldn't be better said, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations on a great tenure as Calvert Hall's coach.
I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd love to hear what your names are and what your most memorable experiences are with Calvert Hall football.
Bill Mackley, Sean Mackley. Memorable experiences going 9-2 with a great football team that I had. And I tell you what, this young man was the captain of the football team, and I'm very, very proud to have the opportunity to coach my own son at a school that I absolutely wanted to go to. I never had the opportunity to go there. That's a great school with a great alumni, and this young man, Party Expression, took my place. So it was a great opportunity to be there all those 6 years, and we had a great time together, and you know, we had fun.
What's it like to coach Calvert Hall football?
It's like coaching Little Notre Dame.
Yeah, you got it.
There you go.
It's a great school.
Absolutely fantastic.
What's your most memorable moment, Sean?
Most memorable experience is probably senior year, beating Gilman 10-6. First time we beat them in like 10 years. And just still out of season, going 9-2. Great year. Had a lot of fun.
Coach, what one message would you give all the players that you ever had coached?
Never give up. And I tell you what, our kids have been always smaller than everybody else. They rose to the occasion. And our kids were just tougher, better, and more educated than most of the kids we ever played against. Our kids listened, and because of the training they had at Calvert Hall, it just spilled onto the football field. And I was very, very proud to be there.
Thank you, Coach Bill Mackley, 88-93. We appreciate it. Sean, thank you very much. It must be a great pleasure to have a father and son coaching and playing for each other.
It's a great honor.
Thank you.
Just telling him how much he resembles his father, and I thought it was a picture of him, and I said, what's his picture doing in there? That's before his hair was gray.
We're glad to have your dad with us tonight.
Oh, he's real happy.
Looking forward to hearing from him. Yeah. Great time in our lives. Thanks a lot.
We're going to get an interview from you guys in a little while. Bring your dad over for an interview.
once in our lifetime event. I don't think that the 100th anniversary that a lot of us will be here, so let's try to enjoy it tonight, and we will start this program. What we're going to do is to introduce to you your masters of ceremonies, who will then in turn introduce the coaches that we have. Before we do that, though, there's a little poem that I'd like to read to you that was sent to me by a fellow from the class of 33. His name was Ed Claudius. And I think it's real cute, and it's generic. It's not particular to being against or for either school. And the poem that he sent to me that he would like to have had for this program reads like this. The big game. Remember that Thanksgiving Day, going to see the Hall and Loyola play. Yet as a member of the football squad, I ran into a situation that was really odd. When I went into the locker room, I sensed an air of impending gloom. What caused the quiet before the storm? Our all-state tackle had lost his uniform. Then a light came on in the coach's eyes, and suddenly did I realize his thoughts I sure could guess. As third string in, my chance to play in that important game that day was 0 or even less. But our tackle could perform if you wore my uniform. So sadly did I acquiesce. We won the game, you need never fear, and in my final game and in my senior year, my uniform played every minute. It was the hero of the game, but somehow I got no fame. You see, I was never in it. Tonight we're going to be guided along by two well-known celebrities. Each of these men are graduates from our respective schools. Each have graciously accepted to be joint masters of ceremonies. Representing Calvert Hall, a 1966 alumnus, whose son Tad is now a junior at the Hall. Currently, this man is the sports director, WQSR Radio, play-by-play man for the Oriole broadcast on HTS Sports, sports anchor on Mutual Radio since 1983, doing college and NFL game announcing, former sports director for WCBM, when he did the Baltimore Colts play-by-play from 75 to 83, NBC radio anchor from 88 Summer Olympics in Seoul, has the show Sports Beat, Bracy Donovan and Fans, Boog and the Birds, Notes and Quotes with Johnny Oates. I think that'll change next year. Maryland Sportscaster of the Year 5 times, I present to you Tom Davis.
Tom Baby, congratulations on an outstanding turnout for the Calvert Hall contingent. I'm Dennis Naranga from Loyola. I've worked with Tom, and Tom Baby is definitely crazy. He's totally nuts, and I'm glad this banquet is finally taking place. We have, I want to thank our Alumni Association, Mr. Bob Erpol, the president, and the Fathers Club, Mr. Paul Bellevaux, the president, and also Bill McSherry for their assistance in this program and in many programs throughout the year. Vince Bagley needs no lengthy introduction. We turn him on and he can go forever with stories. The Dean of Sportscasters and one of the true greats, Vince Bagley.
It's easier to work it this way than it is to try to adjust it for Vince and I, my height difference. We're going to begin with sharing the introductions of the coaches just briefly as we talked before the video, and then we'll get more elaborate as the evening progresses. But we're going to begin now with the first group of men represented from Calvert Hall through 1958. We're going to go back from 1920 to 22. Representing Maury Eichelberger is his nephew, Fred Eichelberger. Fred Eichelberger. Representing 1923 to 1929, Valentine Dutch Lentz, his son Val Jr. Calvert Hall coach from 1930 to 1934, Nick Red Wing Bircher, escorted by one of his players, Joe Corby. Ray Barr, 1935 to 1946, is one of his 5 sons, Ronald Barr. The only assistant coach to be head coach for one Loyola game, 1940, Jim McGurk, class of the 62 for his dad, Jim. Here is the Calvert Hall coach from 1947 to 1950, but a Loyola alumnus who played against Calvert Hall, the brother of Joe Mellendick, Bob Mellendick. Carrying on the tradition, a 1981 grad who played for Augie Maselli, but his dad was the Calvert Hall coach from 51 to 53, Bob Nowatzki.
It's a great thrill to be here, folks. I guarantee you. The general manager of the New York Giants, fellow played at Calvert Hall, played at Bucknell, made the little All-American team, drafted by the Dallas Texans, and has been the 4-time National Football League Executive of the Year. The general manager of the Giants, the Calvert Hall coach from 54 to 58, George Young. From the Loyola Dons, a guy who followed a tradition, certainly an immortal in Ed Hargadon. 28 years on the Amherst coaching staff after a brief few years at Boston College. The Loyola coach from 57 through 61, Tracy Mayer. Cardinals in 1959, only stayed 1 year, representing his dad, Tom Carr. Let's have a hand for Jim Carr. Again for the Dons from 1962 to 64, Leo Broadhurst. From Calvert Hall, 1963-1966, who played football at Baltimore Poly, University of Maryland, went on to coach at West Point, Fred Kern. From 1967 through 73, selected as a player as a little All-American at Westchester State, Calvert Hall's Joe Carloza. Joe's going to give a speech later, now relax. From 1974 to 87, 14 years as head coach, 4 times coach of the year, Augie Maselli. From 1988 to 1993, came down from John Carroll to coach the Cardinals, Bill Mackley. And the current Cardinal coach, an athletic director whose dad was a great tackle at Loyola. This fellow was a great player at Cardinal, Gibbons, Lou Eckrell, Jr. Going back a few years for one of the greatest players I ever saw. A great high school halfback who went on to Villanova, the Calvert Hall coach from 1960 through 62. He played 4 years on the varsity, and I think is the only guy to have scored a touchdown against Loyola as a freshman, Dave Parr. And the man we know is one of Maryland's winningest coaches, 28 seasons at Blakefield from 1967. He'll coach again this year, Joe Boone.
We're basically going to keep things flowing here. We're going to introduce to you the presidents from the school's Calvert Hall. Brother Kevin Strong, right out here.
And representing Jim Salmon, or rather representing Jerry McAndrews, the principal of Loyola High, his father Jim Salmon, representing the Blakefield Dons. Father Salmon. And as always at these functions, whenever there's a free meal involved, you can count on the next person to say grace. A great Calvert Hall player in his day, football, baseball, soccer, and a great priest for a lot of years, Monsignor Marty Schwallenberg. Monsignor's making a regal entry from the rear of the hall. If I can have your attention for just a moment, please. If I can have your attention for just this moment, please. There was one observation that I noticed shortly after we came in here, and certainly out in the hall and all over the place. It was kind of sickening. I see all these Loyola guys and Calvert Hall guys shaking hands, and hugging each other, and all that silly stuff. But seriously, I want to congratulate Tom Bateman, for his hands. You know, even with a happy gathering like this, there's room for taking certain things into account. For example, you guys' friendship, your rivalry, your families, your friends, and Tom, your timing couldn't have been better around Thanksgiving. So I'd like to dedicate this little prayer to that, because I think it says it all. Here's the way it goes, and it's not that long. It reminds us of where we are, what we are about, and what we ought to be with family and with one another. Keep us, O Lord, from all pettiness. Let us be large in thought and word and deed. Let us be done with fault-finding and leave off all self-seeking. May we put away all pretense and meet each other face to face, without self-pity, without prejudice. May we never be hasty in judgments, but always be generous in spirit. Let us always take time for all things, and then make us grow calm, gentle, yet strong. Teach us to put into action our better impulses, then to be straightforward and unafraid. And Lord, let us never forget to be kind. Hey, you guys, all of you, keep up the spirit. I have a few more folks to introduce at the head table. The athletic director and varsity basketball coach, his 27th year at Loyola, member of the Mount St. Mary's Hall of Fame, a great player for Jim Phelan up there. Loyola's athletic director, Jerry Savage. A 4-year assistant to Joe Broom at Blakefield, John Davis, Coach Davis. In his second year as an assistant coach, a Harvard graduate and a Jesuit scholastic, Justin Whittington. And on the Loyola staff for 16 years as head freshman coach, assistant to the varsity, John McGee. John McGee. An assistant coach for 16 years, working with both the freshman team and the varsity, Buzz Berman. Buzz Berman. Member of the Banquet staff for 25 years, and a former defensive standout for Towson State, Bill Carroll. One of Ed Hargan's greatest quarterbacks at Loyola, a fellow who went on to Notre Dame to become an All-American and played on 2 national championship teams. Drafted #1 by the Chicago Bears, Bobby Williams, right here. It's time to have dinner. Thank you, folks.
Representing Coach Ray Barr, who coached from 1935 to 1946. Ron Barr, one of 5 sons. Please head this way. 4 of which went to Calvert Hall. Coach Barr died July of 1966. He's buried in Philadelphia. He lettered in 4 sports and was selected to the LaSalle College Hall of Fame. Coach Barr won the MSA basketball championship in 1939, and his first 4 football games against Loyola were victories. At the end of his coaching career at Calvert Hall, the yearbook wrote of Coach, untiring in his efforts, never discouraged, and always body and soul behind the teams. He turned out some mighty fine athletes. We admire and respect him more for the lessons that he has taught his players. Ron, on behalf of your dad and brothers who went to Calvert Hall, please accept this award as a token of our gratitude for Coach Ray Barr. The next coach presents an interesting circumstance. With Mr. Jim McGurk, please come forward. Jim is a 1962 Cardinal graduate, the year I started there. In the Thanksgiving game of 1940, head coach Ray Barr was already hospitalized for cancer treatment, and Jim's dad, Jim McGurk, became the only assistant coach to become head coach for the Loyola game. Coach McGurk won both of his games as head coach, first beating Mount St. Joe and then Loyola in 1940 by a score of 6-2. He was a star and a captain when he played at Calvert Hall. He came back to coach both football and ice hockey. Jim's wife, Lloyd, nods that up until the time that Jim died on September the 2nd, 1992, Jim always treasured his association with Calvert Hall. To him, the Christian brothers were tops. I, too, have had a great love for Calvert Hall. Jim McGurk, Jr., please accept this gift as thanks and remembrance for your contribution to Calvert Hall. Calvert Hall is proud to announce that this fall, 5 MIAA champions, JV cross country country undefeated, the varsity cross country undefeated, the JV soccer champs, also the varsity soccer champs, and the JV football team undefeated champs. This year's 75th anniversary game button and patch was designed by Mel Filler. The graphic design for the football program cover was donated by Ken Hatter. Here tonight we have some interesting people out in the audience. We have head football coach at Towson State, Gordy Combs, his Calvert Hall assistants Pat Curran and Jay Robinson. Want to stand up, please, and recognize. We'd like to recognize from the administration staff of Calvert Hall, Brother Kevin Strong, the president, he's right over here. Also, Brother William Johnson, the principal. Lou Heidrich, the assistant principal. Lou, stand up. You still look the same way. You don't like you've aged a day. You're right next to you. Former principal's brother, Gabriel Sicilian from the 1950s. There he is. Also, brother Renee Sterner from the 1980s. With us tonight to represent the Sun Papers, Jim Henneman, one of the best baseball writers around. Where's Jim Henneman? Where's Jimmy? Not here. The three who traveled the longest distance for tonight's event, Jerry Dashiel from Oklahoma City. Stand up. Also Jim Welch from Florida and Jeff Kia from Ohio. Banquet over at Martin's West. They honored about a dozen Illinois, and the last to come up to the podium was Brooks Robinson, and he also got a standing ovation. Brooks Robinson and John Unitas, one of the people that we all loved and adored as youngsters growing up here in Baltimore. Also here tonight, John LeBreau, 4 touchdowns in the 1942 game. John, stand up please. And also brother Randy, they traveled on since 1940.
Hey kid, we never liked your brother Jim. We don't like him that close.
You never liked who?
We never liked your brother Jim or your older brother. Okay?
But the youngest brother, Kid, is all right.
Kid's fine. He's great. The older two. Okay? No comment.
Everyone was from 40 yards or more. Great distance. They won the came and it was a great, tremendous performance. Some of the people that came from great distances now, from 19 to 48 team, the class of 48 in Loyola, from Scranton, New Hampshire, Felix McQueen, right over here, Felix McQueen. All those guys on that, I think he had the guys at the table. Jim Curran, Bob Cahill, and Bill Finch, and Bert Shattuck, and then Jimmy Garland and Jack Lawrence, and Pickett Reel,
Check out the long hair.
Bob Fitzsimmons was introduced from Scottsdale, Arizona. He came in and he's a 52 and 53 teams. Some of them are in his
Just don't have that kind of style.
I was just doing what we got here.
From Virginia Beach, Florida, one of the great halfbacks in the history of the Calvert Loyola Series. The 1962 class of Loyola, Henry Baha. Henry. Too much. A couple of former Jesuit players, Jesuits who became Jesuits after they played football. From the 1945 class, the quarterback on the 44 championship team, Father Henry Haskey, Hank Haskey. And as I mentioned before, from the 45 and 60, Father Bert Proctor over here, right there. The oldest alumnus, the oldest Loyola alumnus here tonight, class of 1924. Now remember, this is the year that Grambling Rice named Notre Dame's 4 horsemen. So he's seen a few players in his day. Mr. Joe Jankowitz. Joe, right here. More hair than anybody at the head table. There you go. We also have from the class of 26, Francis Babe Suter, Mr. Suter. And from 28, John Atkinson right here. And this fellow's an alumnus of the class of 1933, but in the 1994 alumni lacrosse game, he actually faced off from the class of 33, John Nom. John Nom. Still in good shape. And some members of the faculty here tonight, a fellow who played high school basketball at Xavier up in New York against Loyola, and played at the old Knights of Columbus, the Alcazar, when they had a place there. The former president of Loyola High, Father Jim Salmon. All right. One of our favorites for many, many years, the chaplain with the Baltimore Colts, Father Joe McNamara. Father McNamara. And from the Classical Languages Department, Father Lord George. Another former headmaster at the at Loyola High, and a great hockey player. He played hockey till about 3 years ago. From the class of 43, Father Don Renfrew. He's also had 4 holes in one while playing golf. The head of the middle school, class of 60, Tim Pierce. Tim Pierce. And the assistant headmaster, former longtime assistant, Joe Broom, and the former coach of the famed Baltimore Thunder indoor lacrosse team, class of 60, Johnny Stewart. Calvert Hall guys are probably saying, did he miss anybody? All right. Okay. Now we're going to introduce a couple of people who represent coaches no longer with us. Representing Coach Joe Mellendick. Joe Mellendick played football in Loyola High. He went on to Georgetown, was an outstanding player there. And of course, a lot of people who can remember the Orioles when they won the pennant in 1944 know that Bill Dyer, who was the predecessor to Chuck Thompson, named him the Loyola Limited, Joe Mellendick. He came back to coach Calvert Hall for 3 years, and in 1948 was the architect of perhaps the biggest upset up to that time in the series. Thinking back, I'm not sure how good an upset it was because Calvert Hall had some great players on the club. But Loyola was heavily favored. Calvert Hall won the game, however, 13-0. He was the all-time center fielder at Royal High on George Helfrich's all-time baseball team, as we say, played college football and pro baseball. He was born in 1917. He died in 1975 at the age of 58. We'd like Bob Mellendick to come forward. Bob, a unique individual was Joe, your brother. He played against Loyola, he played for them, and coached against them. We'd like to accept this gift on his behalf. From Joe Mellendick, Bob Mellendick. And Bill Dick and John Mellendick also with us in the audience tonight. Now representing Coach Bob Nowoski. This is Calvert Hall, 1951 to 53. His son Bob Jr. We'd like Bob Jr. to come on up here. And he reminds you a little bit of his dad. Bob Jr. played with Coach Maselli in 1980. Calvert Hall was introduced to Nowoski by John Sanborn, the beloved longtime trainer there. He was an All-American football player at George Washington, and he played with the Chicago Bears for several years, including the 73-0 rout of the Redskins in 1940. He served in the Navy as a lieutenant in World War II. And he later played for the Dons as assistant coach, that's the Los Angeles Dons, and assistant coach with the Chicago Cardinals. Bob Nowoski died, actually doing a work of mercy. He was helping somebody change a tire, as I recall, and passed away prematurely in 1971. Bob Nowoski Jr. would like to accept this gift to commemorate the service of his playing days for Coach Maselli and the undefeated 1979 team on which you played. Bob Nowoski. God, he looks like his dad. He really does. Now, representing Coach Tom Carr. Coach Carr was with the club in 1959 at Calvert Hall. His son Jim Carr is with us tonight. Came over from Washington. Tom Carr died very prematurely, only 47 when he died in 1975. He grew up in Shamokin, Pennsylvania, in the coal regions, served 2 years in the Army as a first sergeant, went to East Stroudsburg State, became familiar with Calvert Hall while coaching at Delone up in Hanover, and his coaching career took him to Lebanon Valley, Delone Catholic, Calvert Hall, the semi-pro level. Coach Carr had 4 children who were spread around Toledo, Pittsburgh, and Maryland. We'd like Jim Carr to come up and thank him for being with us tonight. Jim Carr. We wanted, before we introduce the head coaches who are with us, and we'll have a few words to say tonight, we want to say thanks to Henry Welford. Henry's tireless efforts located all of these coaches' relatives. It was really difficult to do that because many of them have been around for many, many years in this area. Tom David said he had no trouble finding some of the living coaches, but he had no idea where to search for the relatives since these men aren't listed in the directory. So Henry Welford and Tom David, again, our thanks. We'd like you to stand up and take a bow. Henry Welford. All right, Tom, you can pick it up now and give me a call.
All right, Vince. Got a lot of people, I'd just like to say, and acknowledge out here in the audience, Jerry Gray, who was an assistant for Fred Kern in 1963. Jerry Gray was in the corner. Like the Johnny Town High, also the oldest Calvert Hall grad here tonight, Al Klug, from the 1925 team from Copenstown. Next alum that's here is Sean Mackley from 1992. Where's Sean? Sean? Is that him right here? Okay. Our first coach to present to you is a man who's starred at Calvert Hall in football, baseball, basketball, and soccer. Nick Bircher played from 1923 to 1927 and coached the Cardinals from 30 to 34. He was the unknown distinction as being responsible for starting soccer at the school. When Nick Bircher Red Wing played for Dutch Lentz, he was paving the way for the beginnings of our soccer program as soccer did not exist. So when football season was finished in the fall, he proceeded to be a player coach for soccer, which back then was played in the winter. Nick's senior yearbook picture declared that he was one of the best all-around athletes in Maryland in 4 sports. In 1933 as a coach, he had won state and Catholic championships in football, 3 times in basketball, and 3 times in baseball. 7 championships in 4 years, and 2 undefeated teams, 1932 and 34. The last words written about him in the 35 yearbook were, during his years of coaching, Nick has always maintained a spirit of fair play, and he has endeavored to impart it to all his charges. The yearbook concluded, well, so long, Nick, and good luck, and maybe the God of coaches gives you an abundance of good material and the cooperation of the faculty and the students. 60 years later, in 1995, Nick has not left, and neither have we left you. Understand the devotion that his players had for him. When Joe Corby, who as a scoring coach here tonight, was asked if he would bring his former coach to the dinner, Mr. Corby told us, I'll take Coach Bircher anywhere he wants to go. Would you please step up to the microphone here, Nick Bircher.
Coached from 1930 to 1936. And the first 4 years I coached 7 state championships, which wasn't there. I think we had the best team in 32 or 33. We beat Paul Brown. I think he was the best coach that's ever coached in Maryland. He has won 22 straight games, and we beat him. And I'm more proud of that than beating Loyola 32 straight.
Way to go, Dan.
Thank you very much. Television, when you see script this big, it's usually for what they call a teleprompter. You know, if you see the news anchors looking right into the lens and actually sounding like they know what they're talking about, basically they're reading a script that's been typed out. You just read it right straight through and it looks like you're knowledgeable. But Mr. Corby, would you please come up here to the speaker's podium? We have a surprise for you, sir. Played for Coach Bircher, and he went to Calvert Hall for 4 years. In 1930, just as graduation came, Joe was told that he would have to leave. He had not taken all the courses required. He had missed a half-credit course and therefore could not graduate from Calvert Hall. So after taking the courses that his counselor signed him up for, he was without a diploma. Tonight, we're going to fix that. Brother Kevin, come on up. Gonna get your diploma a little late. Better late than never, right? Mr. Corby,
Jeremy is a great friend of mine, and he has done a lot for the school. And although we do not have the diploma, it is ordered that he's going to receive this at a special affair, which will come later. But we do want to congratulate him for finally getting his Calvert Hall diploma, and thanks very much for all that you do for Calvert.
I've been there before. Congratulations. Thank you for coming up. Better late than never, right? I'll tell you what, over the years, you know, I worked with Vince Bagley for a long time back in the early 70s, and he brought me into the business, and one of the first people that he introduced me to was a man that's sitting alongside me down this head table here. And I'd like to be introducing him, but I think it's probably a situation where Vince and this gentleman have been probably as close of friends as you could possibly have here in Baltimore. So I'm going to turn it over to Vince for a loyal introduction of a Calvert Hall man. Vince?
Thank you, Tom. First of all, I'll introduce a couple of fellows who made it pretty good through Calvert Hall and then went on to do big things in the NFL. One of the great defensive ends in football. I remember talking to Wyatt Till one time, and he said that he was at a particular time in his career as good a defensive end as there was. He went to the University of Virginia after playing at Calvert Hall. He was involved in the famous game when they beat Loyola 13-0 in 1948. And he played for the New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm talking about Tom Scott. Tom Scott. And another red bird who did a good job. I think it was 8 years with the St. Louis Cardinals, the football Cardinals in St. Louis before they moved to Arizona. Then he moved to the Jets, where he was the center and also snapped the ball and blocked for Joe Namath. Wayne Mulligan. Wayne Mulligan. Both these fellas, members of the Maryland Athletic Hall of Fame. Hall of Famers with us tonight, no doubt about it. I'm thinking to introduce one right now who one of the most famous of all Calvert Hall graduates. Calvert Hall graduate in 1948, played a couple of years there, went on to Bucknell where he became a little All-America tackle, drafted by the Dallas Texans. He played with that club briefly in the era of Art Donovan and Sisto Averno and other original Colts. Went into teaching and coaching. Coached at Calvert Hall, coached at City College for many years, and many MSA champions. While studying football, he was also studying history, has 2 master's degrees in that subject. Was recognized as a great knowledgeable football man by Don Shula, then the coach of the Miami Dolphins. Brought him to Miami, a very organized person, a fellow who was immensely loyal. A personal note about him, I don't think I've ever met anybody in sports more loyal than this man I want to introduce right now. Whenever he comes to Baltimore, he calls his friends, he calls you on the phone. If anybody's having any trouble, he's first there by your side or on that telephone. So I'd like to introduce now the 4-time Executive of the Year in the National Football League, twice the National Football League champion with the New York Giants, the Giants General Manager, one of Calvert Hall's great people, George Young.
Goes with the spirit of the night that I'd be introduced by someone from Loyola. I really mean that sincerely. This is a wonderful affair. You know, we live in a strange world nowadays. I think the word sportsmanship is lost in antiquity somewhere. Nobody seems to appreciate it. This kind of a gathering reaffirms the fact that it does exist, and maybe it's just on the high school level. I hope it's a little further up, but it really is impressive to have such a wonderful affair. I was thinking of Nick Bircher, who played with my father here in Calvert Hall, and I was very, it touched me very much when Ronnie Barr introduced his father, who was my coach at Calvert Hall. And all of Joe Mellendick's brothers, I think, are here or coached me at Calvert Hall. And even Dutch Lentz, his son and grandson are here, and he coached my father at Calvert Hall. And you just don't have an opportunity in life to live through this. So this is what this evening means to me, and I'm very, very impressed with it. Even when Nick Bircher was talking about Paul Brown, in the last year of his life, I spent with him in Hawaii. We were at a competition committee meeting, and I was up early in the morning, and we're sitting there next to the ocean, and Paul is talking to me, and he's 83, 4, whatever he was then, and he's talking about his time in the MSA and at the Severn School in 1930 and 31, and how happy he was in those days. And he asked me something, he looked me right in the eye, and he says, "Do you remember a guy named Herbie Armstrong?" And I said, "Yeah, I knew him well, but I never call him Herbie. I always call him Mr. Armstrong." But he was Paul's dearest friend in the MSA, and here he's in his 80s, and we're talking about all kinds of other kind of things. And when I told him that I knew Herb Armstrong, and he just lit up the rest of the day, that he said later on in the day, he said, "Did you really know Herbie Armstrong?" So I said, these kind of things are so important. I really appreciate, I can't name all my former players that are here, and the coaches and all of the people. It's just the event, the Calvert Hall Loyola game, I hope to attend this year, and I am looking forward to it. I won't tell anybody too much, but I did see Loyola play St. John's this year. You know, you get tired of looking at what I have to look at. And I still appreciate a high school game. I went and saw Bergen Catholic play against St. Joe's Riesel, which is where I live, and they have one of the best teams in the country. They're rated about 5th. They're the Irish Christian Brothers. I always remind them up there I was taught by the French Christian Brothers. They overrun the community up there. I'd like to tell you one little story, because I think it's very fitting. And Brother Rene, who I spoke with before in LaSalle, the Christian Brothers got me 2 nights in a row. They got me up in Philadelphia, and then they got me here. But I would like to tell this little story, because when you look in the room and you look at all of you people, this is one of the most apropos things. It was something that I found in Ann Landers. It seems that a woman wrote this to Ann Landers after reading all of these stories, the macho men and all that stuff in there, but I think that some of you can take this to heart, even the younger fellows. It seems that when the good Lord was making the world, he called man aside and bestowed upon him 20 years of normal sex life. Man was horrified, but the Creator refused to budge. Then the Lord called the monkey and gave him 20 years. "But I don't need 20 years, said the monkey. 10 years is plenty. Man spoke up and said, "May I have the other 10? The monkey agreed. The Lord called on the lion, also gave him 20 years. The lion too wanted only 10. Again man spoke up, "May I have the other 10? "Of course," said the lion. Then came the donkey, who was also given 20 years. Like the others, 10 years was enough. Man again asked for the spare 10, and he got them. This explains why man has 20 years of a normal sex life, 10 years of monkeying around, 10 years of lying about it, and 10 years of making a jackass out of himself. I just knew what she was talking about. I really appreciate being here with all of you.
Yeah, sure.
Another one of those profound Calvert Hall guys. We'd like to introduce one of the great quarterbacks to ever come out of the city. Ed Hargan picked him up. I remember when he first came in the game, the 1944 game. The first time we played it was perennially the best Sandlot team in the country. He has the 14-16 team. Harbor Federal is the name of the bank, and that's the name of the team. I was at a banquet with him a couple of weeks ago. Let's introduce number 9 from Notre Dame, former Loyola quarterback, Bobby Williams.
Thanks, Vince. The only thing he didn't add is the first time I got in the game, in the Calvert Hall game in 1944, as Vince mentioned, I was an end, and I was looking into the eyes of the guy who you just heard from a few minutes ago. And the first thing he looked at me and he said, "Which way do you want to go, kid?" When discussions arise about Loyola High School and related football and basketball in our area, conversation always revolves around our coach, Ed Hargan. Ed was and still is an institution in itself at Loyola. Biographically speaking, Ed came to Loyola in 1942 as a football and basketball coach. According to one of his players that first fall, Ed almost gave up because most of his team was not interested in practice, but only partying after the games. If I'm not mistaken, John LeBrew, and I'm sure I'm not mistaken now, ran wild that year as Calvert Hall beat Loyola. He hurried that season along to get on with basketball because, remember, he had Jim Lacey waiting for him. Ed's era at Loyola continued until 1956, during which time he had 4 MSA championships, the first undefeated season at Loyola in '44, state champs in 1943, went to New Orleans a couple years later, playing in the Sugar Bowl, and always good, solid football teams year in and year out until 1956, his last year. Let me back up a bit and give you a few insights about Ed Hargan as a coach. During my 3 years on the team, they took us away for preseason football camp. The first was Tread Avenue near Oxford, Maryland. We stayed in deserted chicken houses, practiced in what was a former pasture, and worked twice a day, 7 days a week for an interminable period. I quickly learned about Ed's work ethic. I was a sophomore in at the time and took a daily pounding from 2 All-Staters, Bob Knoppinger and Lou Eckerl, both of whom are here this evening. They had us walk to morning mass and 3 meals a day up to the main house a mile away. That was sort of to get you tough. Then Bellarmine Hall on top of the mountain near Camp David. Laps up and down the mountain. Ed hated to waste time, so he got most of the football players out after dinner to practice a little half-court basketball. Bill Goodrow was a quarterback, and he was telling me about the Calvert Hall game in 1948. Hargan was so mad that he wouldn't speak to him for 10 years. Hargan got wind of a bunch of players going out the night before the game and thought Goodrow was the ringleader. The real story was that Calvert Hall had scouted Loyola and knew that they would do certain things when Goodrow lined up a certain way. Bill said he got a suntan, he was looking at the sky so much. The mark of good practice was how many had blood on them after practice was over, as far as Ed was concerned. Joe Broon said it best, that Hargan coached pride and intimidation. He was the master at encouraging aggressiveness. Ask anyone who played for Ed Hargan, and they'll tell you he taught valuable lessons in being a team player, getting up after being knocked down, being the best you can be, and most importantly, self-discipline. Ed died in 1986 at 75. His spirit remains at Loyola, and I'm proud to say he was my coach, teacher, and friend. Thank you.
We wanted to have Ed Jr. here tonight. Ed Jr., Ed Hargan Jr., played on a championship team in 1955. And he is in Braden in Florida, where he has just accepted a new position. He's the director of the Bureau of Purchasing for the city of Braden. And he tried to come, but he wasn't able to make it. But he did send me a fax, and I want you to bear with me while I read you a few lines from the fax. This is from Ed Hargan Jr. For about 15 years, he was in the Loyola dressing room as a young player, a young boy, a kid. He was the ball boy. I can remember that. A player and then an alumnus. Remember something that is as true today as it was as you celebrate your dinner. It's as true today as it was then. Before the game in the dressing room, the great coach, meaning his father, would gather the players together, and after a few quick comments about the game plan, he would get deadly serious and address the seniors playing their last game. Boys, he would say, there's only one thing I wish for you today. I wish that when the game is over, that you can walk off this field with pleasant memories. Then the coach went on to explain what pleasant memories meant. Holding nothing back, playing like down to your last breath, if your last breath of air depended on it, trying to perform things that you never dreamed could happen. And he promised that if you did that, even though you won or lost the game, if you had the pleasant memories of the best effort you could put forward, you'd be happy with yourself. He said, Ed writes, I was lucky to play on a strong, loyal team that was fortunate to beat a very tough Calvert Hall squad and that enable us to win the MSA championship. In the locker room, immediately after the game, with all the excitement, the emotion of it all hit me. All I could do was quietly slip into the men's room, lock myself into a stall where I wept quietly. I knew I would have pleasant memories, but I also knew that it was over. I would never again be able to wear a Loyola football uniform again, only in my memories. And Eddie Hargadon Jr. wishes the same thing for the boys who play in this Thursday's game. Play your heart out for your school, your coach, your teammates, but play it for yourself as well so that you will have pleasant memories. He thanks us for thinking about him and remembering his great father on this occasion. Pleasant memories to all from Ed Hargadon Jr. Thank you.
All right, Vince, very well done. Dave Parr's been sitting next to me for the entire evening here, and when I arrived at Calvert Hall in '62, he was the football coach, and little did I know that would be his last year as the coach. He coached from 1960 through 1962. He was an assistant coach in '59, and he went to Calvert Hall from '50 to '53. He has the distinction of being voted the greatest halfback to ever come out of Calvert Hall. Dave Shannon, a Calvert Hall teacher and former coach, said that he played against Dave at St. John's and that Dave single-handedly beat them. He started all 4 years and as a freshman scored a touchdown against Loyola. Each yearbook cites Dave Parr scoring on long touchdown runs. Dave went to Villanova, served in the Army, and currently resides in Chicago, where he owns his own marketing company. May I present to you Coach for Calvert Hall back in the early '60s, Dave Parr.
Quite an auspicious occasion for me and Reverend's brothers and the fathers, gentlemen, distinguished guests. I've come here to tell you a story. I've come here to pay an obligation back, which I should have done many, many years ago. The story is about a young man, sort of a dumb kid, by the name of David Parr, who entered Calvert Hall in 1950. It was kind of inevitable that I would go there, simply because my father had gone to Calvert Hall, and I was the boat boy for a fellow by the name of Father Henry Brianzo, who was the chaplain at Calvert Hall when Brother Gabriel was then principal. So it seemed almost inevitable that I did wind up there. It was the greatest thrill of my life to be able to go to this institution. I entered that institution in 1950, and through the kindness of Brother Gabriel, he worked out some sort of arrangement where we paid $4 a month or $4 a year in tuition. And while doing that, this great man also founded the new Calvert Hall and found enough money and contributors to build that marvelous institution that's across the way. Anyway, I went to Calvert Hall in 1950, and I immediately entered the school on the ramp. And if any of you have ever seen old Calvert Hall, it was a 5-story structure down at the Cathedral in Mulberry, and of course the freshmen were housed on the top floor. And to get to the top floor, it took you 10 minutes to get there. When you're there, you're out of breath, and of course that's the way the Christian brothers wanted you, because you couldn't say anything back to them. I entered the ramp, and I knew it was the ramp because there was a halo of blue smoke above it. It was the only place that the upperclassmen could smoke their cigarettes. And it was the only gracious token that you got from the Christian Brothers, because we had a camp high, which was 50 yards of concrete one way and 100 yards of concrete another way. That was the campus of Calvert Hall. I entered that gate, and the first thing that I beheld was a senior classman who came up to me and asked me, "Hey kid, where are you going?" I said, "I'm trying to find Brother D. Andrews' class." He said, "Well, that's up on the 5th floor of this building. But I got your problem solved." He said, "I have an elevator ticket in my pocket, and since I'm a senior, I'm going to sell that ticket to you." You thought there was dummies there at Calvert Hall? Well, let me tell you, they still exist, and they are there today. I bought that elevator ticket, and with that, the first bell rang. Now, off I went to the senior classroom. I said, "Well, where's the elevator? I got to get up to the top floor." He said, "I'll show you where it is." And he took me over these beautiful green doors. He opened the door and threw me in, and I went into the garbage pit. The second bell rang. I was reeked in garbage. I ran up the stairs and got to the very top floor, the 5th floor of this building. And what to my wondrous eye appeared was Brother Paul. Brother Paul was 6'12", weighed 400 pounds, and never spoke a word other than a shout. He said, "Hey kid, where are you going?" I told him I was going to see Brother Andrew. He said, "Wonderful." He whacked me in the back of the head, drove me into Brother Andrew's arms at the door, and Brother Andrew saw me and he said, "You're terribly disheveled." I said, "You're right, brother." I said, "I've been here for 15 minutes. I've been swindled, thrown into a garbage pit, and now partially assaulted." He said, "Don't worry, you're home. Sit down and relax." I sat down, and he instantly went to the front of the classroom, rolled up his sleeves of his cassock, and I saw these great big forearms appear. And this man had the greatest forearms I've ever seen in my life. And you didn't think I was going to tangle with that after I'd been so abused for the first 15 minutes. I had the world's record at Calvert Hall for doing the dumbest things. And he knew that. The day progressed, and sure enough, Brother Andrew became my fast friend. He cleared the way for me, and at that time he said, "Hey kid, why don't you go out for football?" I said, "Marvelous, brother, what do I do?" He says, "Well, come down and get some equipment." We went downstairs, we got the equipment. He handed me a pair of hip pads, and of course I had an 18-inch waist. He gave me a 42-inch hip pad, and instead of having the hips, there were a cup and a fanny pack. Everything else seemed to fit pretty well except the headgear. The headgear, which I wore all 4 years that I was there, I never had to take off. It had 4 inches in the front, and I could wipe my brow by dropping a towel up between my forehead and the headgear. It was a marvelous situation, and I loved every moment of it. Brother Andrew gave me the equipment. I said, "Where do we play? Where can I walk to this?" He said, "We're at Walbrook Oval." I said, "Marvelous. How do I get there?" He sat down, and this beautiful Palmer hand, and if you've ever seen Brother Andrew write, he should have been called Brother Palmer, because he writes the most beautiful notes that you have ever seen. And nevertheless, Brother Andrew wrote me a dissertation, a 4-page dissertation on how to get to Walbrook Oval. 2 streetcars later, and a bus, and a 5-block walk, I found the illustrious Walbrook Oval. Had a swamp at one end, and if you're fortunate enough to make a post out, you may go in the swamp and never return again. Quirky Harkis used to be my locker mate somewhere along the line, and one day, because we couldn't take our whites home to have them washed, he pulled out a t-shirt, and when it hit the air, it disintegrated instantly. Nevertheless, I came out for practice, and I only had a pair of tennis shoes on. And with that, and I'm glad the Melendicks are here tonight, because part of the story goes along with them. I walked down to the field, and Joe Mellendick walked over to me and said, "You can't play in those tennis shoes. Somebody's going to cripple you for life." And I said, "What am I going to do?" He says, "You better get a pair of shoes." So I went home that night, and I rooted around, and my mother said, "Well, I think there's a pair of shoes in the box down in the basement." I went down, pulled the shoes out, and sure enough, there was a pair of football shoes. I'd never seen them before. Took them to practice the next day, walked out there, and I discovered that the shoes were a size 17. My foot was dying. I stumbled around the field, And I saw Brother Andrew, this marvelous eagle in the sky, talking to Joe Mellendick. And Joe and he conversed a little bit, and Joe said, "Come here, boy." I said, "What is it, sir?" He says, "Take your shoes off." I said, "I beg your pardon?" "You just told me to get a pair." He said, "Take your shoes off." I sat down on the ground, took my shoes off, and he sat down on the ground and took his shoes off. And this man, and I'm sure through the orchestration of Brother Andrew, gave me his shoes. I couldn't afford a pair of shoes because my dad was terribly ill at the time, but nevertheless, that was the first act of charity which I really received in my life, orchestrated through this man, Brother Andrew, who I call the eagle in the sky. It was a marvelous occasion for me, and as football progressed and what have you, I found myself at the end of that first year in the Baltimore Stadium locker room. I was sitting there, and I came over kind of early because I only lived 2 doors away. And into the locker room door came Brother Andrew. And Brother Andrew in his Stetson hat and his Sunday go-to-meeting clothes was absolutely and positively beautiful. It appeared as he stepped out of a bandbox. And he looked down at me and said, "How you doing?" I said, "Fine." He said to me, "Give me your shoes." I said, "I beg your pardon?" He said, "Give me your shoes." I said, "What are you going to do?" And with that, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a cleat, and here in his Sunday go-to-meeting clothes, he took these muddy cleats and changed them and put on the new cleats. I said, "What are you doing, brother?" He said, "I'm helping you win this ball game. You think about the ball game." I said, "Brother, I'm not going to play in this ball game." He said, "We'll see." Halfway through the second half, my God, they called my name, and Joe Mellendick sent me into the game, and I hopefully rewarded them a little bit because those shoes carried me across the goal line. And I think Brother Andrew felt a little stronger about it. The fact that he did, as that eagle in the sky, brought me across that finish line. Anyway, life went on, and I got to know Brother Andrew a little bit better, and I went out for hockey. And as I played hockey, I found out that you had to find a pair of ice skates. I went to that proverbial box, found a pair of ice skates that actually fit this time, went out on the rink, stumbled around, and lo and behold, I couldn't skate. And Brother Andrew once again took me off of the ice, took me over, had the skates redone, and I could then skate. Halfway through that season, however, the skates fell apart. He called me over again, took me into the sports arena there, and out of his own pocket, spent $15 and bought me a pair of ice skates. A year later, this eagle, who was standing on the sidelines at the Patterson Park game, and Patterson Park was the enemy of the year, and we happened to tie that game, at which time there were 2 touchdowns scored by those very shoes. And the end result was that Brother Andrew presented me with that football, and I cherish it to this day. Life went on a little bit. We won the several MSCA championships, and the end result was that every game and every championship that we won, Brother Andrew gave me a hockey puck. Well, I came here to tell that story, perhaps not about me, but that great eagle in the sky. That great eagle in the sky was Brother Andrew. And Brother Andrew paved the way for me on almost every occasion where I ran up against the barricades. He is truly what I would consider the man that I wish to emulate in my lifetime. He is the finest man that I have ever known. In recognition of that, and since Brother Andrew always stays on the sideline and never is recognized, I wish to personally present to you, Brother Andrew, my little eagle, which says thank you from the bottom of my heart for being my mentor, for being all of those things that I want to be when I am truly a man. You are the greatest man that I have ever known. Thank you, Brother Andrew. box off of that piece? Someone pull the box cover off of there. I asked the current keepers of Calvert Hall to accept this trophy. The trophy simply says Brothers Andrews Brother Boy of the Year. And if each year you will select one boy who emulates those characteristics that Brother Andrew emulated through his life, and put that name on that trophy, I would be most appreciative. Thank you very much.
One quick thing, I think that there's a tendency to salute, many of the brothers and the priests that have been involved in both institutions. But I think one person might deserve a little bit of a salute tonight that's probably given his entire life to Calvert Hall. It's a guy that's been there as long as I can ever remember. He's sitting right in front of me, Frank Clary. Frank, whenever you go out to Calvert Hall, you're always saying, when I was at Calvert Hall from 62 to 66, I can remember the head coach after Dave Barr was a man by the name of Fred Kern. I thought one of the worst things that we ever had. I'm not much of an exercise, you can tell by the looks of me, but all I can say is what a driving force this guy was. He used to make me run miles, extra miles, because I was so slow at everything, and I'll never forget that. He was an assistant coach back in the early 60s, the head coach 63 through 66. Graduated from Poly, just like Coach Dutch Lentz did. Earned his degree at Maryland, where he later returned to coach. Spent 4 successful years as the head coach at Calvert Hall, winning 3 of the 4 Loyola games, and only allowing Loyola to score 16 points over those 4 years. Fred was our first lacrosse coach. When he left the Hall, he finished his football coaching career at Maryland, BMI, and West Point. Currently lives in Bel Air, where he owns his own realty firm. And may I present to you now, coach for Calvert Hall, from 63 to 66, Fred Kern.
Thanks, Tom. You weren't slow, you were just fat. No, I really enjoyed my time at Calvert Hall. I had a lot of fun there. I got to be at the new school when it first opened, but my memories of Loyola go back further than that, because as a student and a player at Poly, I played against Loyola many times and became acquainted with a lot of their players there. Some of my best friends, Pat Healy, who's not here tonight, he's out getting in shape for next week's game. But and it's good to see Bobby Fitzsimmons here. We used to have a lot of fun together in high school. But coming from Poly, being a student there and playing in the Poly City game, I also coached in it 1 year, then coaching in the Loyola Calvert Hall game and coaching in the Army-Navy game, where I guess 3 of the greatest things that happened to me in sports was participating in all those great events. And I want to congratulate Loyola and Calvert Hall for keeping a great tradition going. You both have a lot to be proud of, and I feel very close to this group here. Thank you.
Dave Hargan left Loyola in 1956, or when he resigned as a football coach. Big shoes to follow. Came along a man from Milwaukee, native Milwaukee, gone to Holy Cross College, played guard there. Then went into coaching at Georgetown Prep. Came to Loyola, probably selected by Hargan, who'd been there prior to his coming to Loyola. Tracy Mayer came to Baltimore, came to Loyola, and in the 5 years between 1957 and 1961, inclusive, he won 2 MSA championships. The 1960 team, arguably as good as any team Loyola ever had. He was an outstanding member of the Marine Corps. Didn't only join the Marines, but had to get involved in the underwater demolition part of that operation. A really competitive guy, a great golfer who at the age of 43 won the Massachusetts State Amateur Championship. Still a very fine golfer. He's been on the coaching staff at Boston College after he left Loyola for a few years, and then for about the past 28 years has been on the football staff at Amherst College in Amherst, Massachusetts. He was also the golf coach there for a long time. One of Loyola's most successful, albeit short-term coaches, the 1957 to 61 coach from Milwaukee to Amherst, Massachusetts, John Tracy Mayer. Tracy.
Thank you, Ben.
Do that now.
George Young, I do want to say one thing to you. I would,
memorable occasions, or what happened in the '83 game? How did that play get called? Well, I'll tell you this from the very beginning: it would have never happened if the game hadn't been on TV. To more or less remind you of basically what the situation was at the time. The game was 8-8 at half, was scoreless through the third quarter, and with about a little less than 2 minutes to go, Coach Broom calls what we used to call a waggle. That was our play. He put it in. We were in man-to-man coverage with a blitz coming. It was a rainy day, and my safety man slipped and fell and didn't cover the fullback coming out of the backfield. It was Kevin Hawes. They throw the pass to Kevin, a little short, dumpy pass into the flat. He takes it, runs down the field, does a little cross roll, goes into the end zone untouched, and we're down 14-8. Loyola did not make the extra point, and there's 1:32 left on the clock. And there's a TV timeout. At that time, Coach Lamb, my assistant, looked at me and said, "Well, what are we going to do?" And I looked at him like this, and I said, "What the hell do you think we're going to do? We're going to try and recover this squib kick." He says, "Your scouting report says that they only squib with the ball flat and it's sitting up." And I looked over. I said, "You're right." And with that, Coach Kern, our JV coach at the time, says, "Return middle." And with that, Kern, Lance said, "We've been running return middle." He said, "Let's go right or left." And out of the press box over the headset, Coach Compton said, "Why don't we run the reverse?" And I said, "That's it. We're going to run the reverse." Well, the problem with that was, guys, we didn't have a reverse. I'm telling the truth. We never ran the reverse. We only ran the reverse in practice for our kickoff team to keep them in the same lanes all the time. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. This is not the Hollywood version, okay? We ran the reverse against our kickoff team just to make certain that all the guys stayed in their lanes. So I said, "We're going to run the reverse." Pat Kern says, "You can't run the reverse." He says, "Look, McPherson's got them huddled up. He already called the play." And the TV, timeout's going and going. I said, "Yeah, we can call him over." I said, "McPherson, get over here." He said, "Me?" I said, "Yeah, get over here." I said, "What'd you call?" He says, "Coach, I called return middle." I said, "Go back, huddle him again, and call the reverse." And Mac looks at me and he says, "The reverse?" I said, "Did you hear me?" He said, "Yes, Coach." He goes back in, huddles the team again. And meanwhile, Loyola's still on the sideline celebrating. No one's seen all of this. TV's still giving us that 3 minutes. And Mac goes in there, and everyone's saying, Pat Kern said, "It's not going to work." Lamb said, "You shouldn't do this." They're all telling me, the ball gets kicked. You saw what happened when McPherson hits the 50-yard line. Every coach standing beside me saying, "I told you it would work. I told you it would work." And that's a true story. So, all these years, you guys thought I was a great coach with great insight, and it was the TV timeout that did it all. Thanks very much.
Our next coach, Bill Mackley, 1988 to 1983, graduated from St. Stephen's Bradshaw on the University of Baltimore. He worked for Denny Cox at Hopkins. Denny's out there. I saw him there, or did he bowl? Where is he? Just walked out the door. He was asleep a minute ago. I saw him out there. He was ready to fall off in the chair. He worked for Danny Cox and Hopkins and the Cardinal Gibbons before becoming head coach at John Carroll. Coach says his fondest memories came in '91 when he beat Gilman after going 10 years without doing that. His 92 team in '92 almost won the MSA. When his son Sean played for us, Bill and Sean became the 5th coaching combination to have a son play. Bill helped develop along the way with Frank Collada's generosity a great weight room for all the Calvert Hall teams. May I present to you now Coach Mackley.
Gentlemen, I'll make this really short to each and every one of you. It's a great pleasure, it's a great thrill, great honor to coach at Calvert Hall. It's a dream come true for a person like myself who never had the opportunity to attend either school. I say to each and every one of you, I was a little kid when I saw all these fellas coach. Every one of them. From Broome up. When I got on the football field my first year, I looked across and I said, my God, I don't have any hair. The man that I watched all these years has white hair. He's had white hair for many, many years. Paybacks are hell, Joe. Your roast will be real good. I know that the Howl's going to beat your butts on Thanksgiving. God bless you. By the way, we're playing Memorial Stadium. And the biggest thing in the life is this. What you have together as Calvert Hall, Loyola, great faculty. No one can ever take the moments that you have together tonight. It's just an honor to sit on this dais with such beautiful people. And I God bless you all. Thank you for the memories. God bless you.